I'm just finishing the new novel. It's called, my upcoming new novel is called There Are Rivers in the Sky. And in order to be able to write this book, I had to do really a crazy amount of research about a broad range of issues, subjects, and disciplines, which might have, seem to be unrelated at first glance. But for me, there are connections. So I've been reading about ancient Mesopotamia, the Epic of Gilgamesh, water science, flood tablets, but also minorities in the Middle East. A lot of reading about nature, rivers, climate crisis, which is essentially water crisis, especially freshwater crisis. And it's a novel that connects all these dots. But in order to be able to do that, I had to read from science to poetry to history to cookbooks. I had to do a lot of, interdisciplinary reading, and that's something I passionately believe in. I think we shouldn't be reading just one genre, one discipline. The mind, I think, is always nourished when we dare to go beyond our own comfort zones as far as we can go, So let's read extensively from fiction to nonfiction. I've never believed in that distinction between so-called highbrow literature and, whatever that means. No one knows who draws those distinctions. Every book is precious. And I think whatever speaks to us in that moment in time is the right book for us. But let us make the process of reading, the journey of reading, constant, an essential part of our daily life. I think it's always fiction. So the novel, the big canvas, the broad canvas that the novel gives us is where my heart beats. And to me, that's the center of everything. Everything revolves around that. I love writing essays from time to time. I wish I had the ability to write poems. I adore poetry. I read a lot of poetry. I don't have that talent. But all I'm trying to say is I like novels of ideas, novels that are open to learning from other disciplines. And it upsets me that when male authors, again, I think there's a gender distinction in this perception, especially where I come from in Turkey. If a male writer produces a novel of ideas, then they're regarded in more serious terms. But when women writers write this way, I think they're immediately called as ambitious. Oh, ambitious writer. And ambitious is not a good adjective, of course, when associated with women. So we need to question these gender distinctions as well. But all I'm trying to say is the beauty of literature is it's open to all kinds of different storytellings. There's not a single formula, a single way that works for everyone. But for me personally, I'm interested in the kind of books that stimulate the mind, but also touch the heart at the same time. So how do we bring the mind and the heart together? How do we expand emotional intelligence? How do we learn from each other? And also, I think I like the kind of novels that ask questions. I'm not interested in authors giving answers. Actually, I don't like that. That's more like preaching or trying to, authors should never try to teach anything. We don't know the answers ourselves. We are students of life. But my point is, questions are important. So to be able to ask questions about difficult issues, silences, taboos, and open up a space with freedom of speech where diverse opinions can be heard, I think is very valuable. And then always you have to respect the reader. You have to leave the answers to the reader, and each and every reader will come up with their own answers. So I have to respect that diversity. But I think it's the job of a novelist to dig into those questions, to ask those questions. But I think in my case, what is close to my heart and what I naturally move towards is diversity. All throughout my life, I have believed in this. I've been shaped by this, all these cosmopolitan encounters. These days, multiculturalism has become a word that is easily discarded by politicians. That breaks my heart. Again, I come from a country that has never appreciated its own multiculturalism, its own diversity. And I think by losing that, we have lost a lot. so I like learning from multiple things, and I think I do believe that there are no easy answers, especially in a world as complex as ours. And what better terrain than literature to deal with complexity, with subtlety, with nuances that we're not even allowed to approach in our daily lives. Everything is simplified, everything is based on fast speed, social media, just scrolling up and down. I do believe that we live in an age in which we have way too much information, more than we can deal with, but very little knowledge and even less wisdom. They're completely different things, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And so, how do we change that ratio? Let's deal with less information, because the truth is, it doesn't stay with us, but let's increase knowledge, and hopefully, eventually, let's increase wisdom. I think in that regard, literature can contribute a lot. In that sense, books tell us so much about the soul of a society, the untold stories, forgotten stories in a society. I'm very interested in this tension, if you will, between memory and amnesia. Turkey, as you know, has a very long history, has a very rich history, but that doesn't translate into a strong memory. Just the opposite. I think we're a society of collective amnesia, and our entire relationship with the past is full of ruptures. There's only one interpretation of history, the official narrative, which is imposed from above. And the moment you ask seemingly simple questions, which are, I think, very important, like how would I feel about let's say, the Ottoman Empire had I been a peasant in the Balkans, or a Jewish miller, or an Armenian silversmith, or, for instance, had I been a concubine, a woman in that empire, how would my life be like? When you ask these questions, suddenly the narrative changes. So I think it's very important for writers to bring the periphery, the forgotten, the forsaken, to the center, make the invisible more visible, and to the best of our ability, give more voice to those whose voices have been either forgotten or completely silenced and suppressed. So I like that when literature does that in its own way, in its natural way.